you know I had to get PK 4.0. Or is it PK 5.0? I don't really know anymore. What's up, sneaker people? It's your boy FB Kicks and Gear, and I am back with another ultimate legit checking guide on the Travis Scott Jordan 1 Low Velvet Brown Velvets. And this time we are featuring the always asked for, ever popular PK 4.0 / PK 5.0. And we always like to do the PK 4.0, 5.0 comparison because it is a touchstone for how good reps are at the moment. And PK 4.0 is often looked at as one of the best top performers when it comes to replicas. So it is always a good thing to have a legit check guide featuring one of the best quote unquote replicas, because if you're going to get scammed, it's probably going to be with one of these. And I don't want y'all to get scammed, so let's get into it. But before we actually dive in, remember, you can see all the pictures that you're going to need to do your research and study up on these shoes on the Instagram account that's going to pop up on the screen. Remember, it's the details that matter, and I can't get through every single aspect of the shoe in a video and not have it be 45 minutes long. So you're gonna have to follow up with more research on your own. So hopefully that Instagram account will help. But with that said, let's just get straight into the breakdown. We're throwing the boxes out because it's the same comparison you guys have seen already. So here we have it. We have the retail pair here on the left, and we have the PK 4.0 on the right. And you guys tell me, what do you guys see? Take a couple of seconds. I'm going to tell you guys what I see kind of straight off the rip. And it's something that I've noticed in the previous videos that we've done with this shoe. Reps just seem to take the authentic pair and then run them through like a grayscale AI generator, because it just feels like the reps are ashier and more grayer and less vibrant than the authentic pairs. And I don't know why that's the case. It was the case in the previous video, and it looks to be the case here. Now, this one, the finishes of the material look a little bit closer to the authentic, but you still have some of those issues that we saw in the previous one. But when I put them side by side, it's not nearly as prominent and standing out as before, but still, nonetheless, you've got a rougher finish to the toe rand and the back panels, and you can see side by side that the authentic pair is just a bit smoother in terms of the finish. And we're not talking about this material here on the side or this material on the toe. We're just talking about the framing of the shoe, and that's what I call this panel, right? Like almost like the skeleton of the shoe. It's a little bit smoother. These are definitely a lot more low cut and compact in terms of the finish than the previous pair. So they're definitely a little bit closer to the authentic pair in that regard, but we definitely do have that color difference that we're seeing both in the uppers on both versions of the suede. Bear with me here. I'm juggling a lot of shoes. The authentic pair on the top, the rep on the bottom. The authentic pair definitely has some texture on those side panels, but take a look at that toe box and see the difference in texture. The rep is just a lot more aggressive with that texture than the authentic pair is. A little bit better, actually. I'd say it almost looks like the authentic pair is a little bit more aggressive with the texture than the rep, but then you feel the rep, and it feels a little bit grittier, it feels a little bit rougher to the touch than the soft material of the authentic pair. But more or less they go towards this image of looking the same, but they definitely feel a little bit different in hand. But I know a lot of the people that watch these videos honestly don't give a fuck about any of that stuff, right? They care about how it looks. They don't even necessarily care how close the quality is, but just take a look at that and really take it in. One of the things that I'm noticing immediately while looking at this is that the Cactus jack on the side is definitely more prominent and bold on the rep than it is on the authentic, and it shines a little bit more. It's got a little bit more of a gloss to it. But other than that, I gotta say they're pretty close. They're definitely pretty close. Now, getting into the details, we see some slight differences. You'll see that just like the previous pair, that lighter lace is a different color on the rep than it is compared to the authentic pair, but this time the rep is just a little bit lighter of a lace and a little bit thicker of a lace as well. Looking at the tongue tags, it's a lighter brown on the authentic pair compared to a much darker brown on the rep pair. That's interesting. You also have a darker liner for the tongue on the replica than you do on the authentic. That's a little bit more subtle, but it is there nonetheless. The Cactus Jack materials look exactly the same. I will say that the build quality on the replica is definitely very good and feels very similar to the authentic. When it just comes down to it, the rep just feels a little bit more sturdy compared to the authentic pair. There's a little bit of give to the upper of the authentic pair that the rep does not have. But visually, very, very close. And the type of material that the authentic pair is made of really gives a lot of cover for replicas to kind of vary a lot. It's just when you start seeing a little bit too much variation that you start, questioning. I haven't seen an authentic pair that has toe boxes that are this kind of rough. If you look at the other shoe, it's not nearly as rough as the right shoe. So maybe that's just something you got to keep an eye out for, and this is just variation between manufactured products. But nonetheless, I mentioned before that you definitely do still have that color difference in the outsole, although I'd say this replica is definitely a lot closer, but you still just got a darker outsole on the rep than you do on the authentic. And then there's just something different going on with the midsole altogether. The midsole on the authentic is just a lot more saturated of a brown when compared to the rep. It's a little bit more muted for sure on the rep. Outside of that, taking a look at the toe box shape, you see that the toe box is pretty compressed, but you get the material kind of rolls back up onto the toe box itself, almost like an elf shoe a little bit. And the rep actually gets the shape pretty well. I would say that the rep is just a little bit flatter of a profile when it comes to the shape. Still very close though. If we're looking at the sock liners, I'd say the sock liner on the rep just is a little bit more muted and grayed out than compared to the authentic. I'm not sure if that's something that comes through here, but I get more of a purple vibe, almost that velvet color, looking at the sock liner of the rep pair. And without taking out the insole, I can see that the outline and the edges to all of the designs and line and letters on the rep are just fuzzier and hairier than when compared to the authentic. You can really see it on the Travis letters. I know it's a little bit obscured, but obstructed, but it is there. And then we go to the accessories like the laces. And just like before, we get a box difference. The box on the rep is just a more saturated kind of, almost a reddish orangish color compared to the washed out cardboard of the authentic. Lace wise, they look pretty good. They look very similar in color. The pinks, on the other hand, look a little bit different. You've got more of a washed out pink on the authentic and more of a vibrant pink on the rep. But the same kind of thing going on with the boxes for sure. So with the minutia out of the way, let's do a very quick blacklight test to see if there are any differences that we can call out. So based on the other video, we know there should be nothing that lights up on the shoes itself. So I'm not going to bother doing anything on the authentic pair because nothing lights up on the authentic pair. So if anything lights up on the rep, we know we got an issue. Nothing going on. Nothing going on. The inside of the insole lights up with the letters. That's correct. The tips of the laces should light up as well. That's correct. You do get reactivity out of the aglets. Outside of the tips of the laces, you should get no reaction out of the laces whatsoever. So this is correct, and this is correct. Although it looks like the pink laces are reactive. So let's pull them out. Yeah. No. It's not that they're reactive, it's that they're just reflecting the light. So this is correct. This is what they're supposed to look like. You want reaction out of the aglet in the middle, and that's what's happening. So unfortunately, the black light test does nothing to help us. So let's get the lights back on. So that wraps up our video. There really isn't much else to discuss. I think I will say, just carrying over from the last video, honestly, the biggest tells are the finish differences between the materials. While the authentic pair can have some texture and it can be pretty hairy and pretty rough, the overall theme of the reps is that all of the material is rough, going from the suede that's on the toe and the side panel all the way around to the regular suede that should be a little bit more compact and less textured, almost as if that suede is treated. Look at it on the authentic pair compared to the rep. So that's honestly the thing to look for on the PK 4.0. It just so happened that there were other slight differences, like this lace and the tongue tag being a little bit different. The midsole and the outsole are consistently something that it doesn't seem any rep batch has gotten correct, so you can use that as your legit checking method as well. But that pretty much wraps up the comparison. I want to bring attention to the fact that, remember, you can find more pictures of the rep on the Instagram screen, because this is going to be the one where the details matter. This is probably some of the closest Travis Scott Jordan 1 lows that I've seen, so it's super important that you guys pay attention to the details. So head over to that Instagram account on the screen, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.